So students will continue with the chapter 1 next video. We have already seen the definition of entrepreneurship by different people all around the globe, and we have understood the concept very well in the first part. Now in this part we will go further and understand entrepreneurship as we go along. The topics covered in this part of the video will be nature and characteristics of entrepreneurship and factors affecting entrepreneurship. Now we see that nature and characteristics of entrepreneurship means what? The main characteristics of entrepreneurship are economic activity. Entrepreneurship is primarily an economic activity because it involves a certain kind of thought process, creation, operation of an enterprise. It is basically concerned with the production and distribution of goods and services and optimally utilizes the resources towards productive use. Entrepreneurship involves innovation. It involves change, revolutionizing, transforming, introducing new approaches, of course, innovative functions, and we have seen a new way of life. It gives employment to people around, and it helps even freshers to get jobs. It can take several forms, such as new product, raw material, new market, new production, and if it is manufacturing, it is more difficult because you have to really see in and out of the entire supply chain process. So we have already seen Drucker saying so many things about it, and he's saying that innovation is the specific instrument of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneur is a change agent. Goal-oriented activity. The entrepreneur who creates and operates enterprises seeks to earn profits through satisfaction of needs of consumers. Hence, entrepreneurship is a goal-oriented activity. Entrepreneurship emphasizes results, achievements, and targets achieved. It is work done, not imaginary plans or paper decisions. Hence, entrepreneurship is a goal-oriented activity. Value creation. Next, we find that the process of creating value is a characteristic in describing entrepreneurship. Through entrepreneurship, new products, services, transactions, approaches, resources, technologies, and markets are created that contribute some value to a community or marketplace. We can also see value created when, through entrepreneurship, resources are transformed into outputs such as products or services. During this transformation process, value is created because the entrepreneur is fashioning something worthwhile and useful. Drucker says, until entrepreneurial act, every plant is a seed and every mineral is just another rock. Isn't Drucker full of awesome sentences and dialogues when it comes to entrepreneurship? I really love this one. Until entrepreneurial act, every plant is just a seed and every mineral is just another rock. So you really need to change the form and the basic metabolism of the product to get something fruitful out of it. That's the value of entrepreneurship. Going to the next slide, entrepreneur creation or enterprise creation. The next characteristic of entrepreneurship is enterprise creation. In order to pursue the perceived opportunities for innovation and to create value, there must be organized efforts and actions. Someone must take the initiative to do something, take action to get the entrepreneurial venture up and running. Entrepreneurship is a creative process or response to the changes in the environment, to the gaps created, to the problems that are there, or to something which can really make life easier for people. It involves innovation or introduction of something new or improved version. An entrepreneur is an agent to effect change. So we have understood these many functions. Let's go to the next point. A function of risk bearing. Risk is an inherent an inseparable element of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur works under uncertainties and he assumes the uncertainty of future. In the pursuit of profit, there is a possibility of loss also. So it is said, prepare for the best or prepare for the worst and just hope for the best, right? So that is how you have to go ahead. Not necessarily it will always be a good, wise decision to be an entrepreneur. For some people, it does not work and it's completely okay. Just because everyone seems to be doing it doesn't mean that you need to jump in the rat race. Because if you face loss, probably you will lose your confidence and motivation, and it might imply a setback in your career. Next point talks about entrepreneurship implies growth. The next characteristic in entrepreneurship is growth. One major difference between entrepreneurial ventures and other small businesses is the emphasis on growth. Entrepreneurship is about growing a business and pursuing opportunities as they arise. It's not about standing still or being content to stay in one market or with one product. Managerial skill and leadership function is the next point. Managerial skill and leadership are the most important facets of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur must have the ability to lead and manage. He provides direction, create work culture, and build teamwork and cohesiveness among employees. Importance of entrepreneurship for business growth is the diagram. Coming to our next point, recognition that it is a process. The characteristics commonly found in entrepreneurship is the recognition that it is an ongoing activity, a continuous evaluation, and will not stop so soon. Once started, it might take a lot of time or maybe even more time than expected to just grow. Very simply, it is a set of ongoing decisions and actions. Entrepreneurship is not a one-time phenomenon. It occurs over time, involves a series of decisions, actions, and managing the venture. Next, gap filling function. The gap between human needs and the available products and services is filled by entrepreneur. He determines the needs of people and combines resources to produce goods and services of requirements. He introduces new products and services, new methods of production and distribution, and sources inputs for this purpose. Like Zomato decided that food delivery can be a great business, or Byju's decided that online learning would be fun for the students who are hooked on internet, or Oyo Rooms decided that hotels can be an organized sector. So we have millions of examples across the globe where a small idea turned out to be a real gap filling idea and people benefited a lot. Of course, at the end of the day, there is one market leader or there are few who take up the major market share. Being over there takes few years of struggle and thinking of the welfare of the society. So no entrepreneur can be successful if he only thinks about profiteering and he only thinks about filling his pockets. Because at the end of the day, who is going to pay you? It is the society or the customers or people who are benefiting out of your product and services. So if you cannot fulfill their problems or demands and cannot solve their problems, they will not pay for it. So basically, anyone who is willing to shell out bucks from their wallet probably feels that what you are providing is much more than what they are paying and it is better than their expectations. That is the reason they will give you funds, right? So that is why an entrepreneur has to be a social welfare person to give to the society initially for free and then probably charge for it. Because India is especially a very price sensitive country. And until the people don't get much more than their expectation, they will not put their money in. Quality probably comes secondary in most of the products and services. What is the priority is that their demands should be fulfilled and that it should be worth paying for, and there should be purchasing power for that product or the service. Right? Let's proceed to the next point, which is dynamic process. Entrepreneurship is a dynamic function. That means it's always changing and has many facets to it. Entrepreneur thrives on changes in the environment, which bring useful opportunities for businesses. An entrepreneur deals proactively with changing markets and environment. He looks at the changes as the source of market advantages, not as a problem. Uncertainties are market opportunities for him. He capitalizes on fleeting market anomalies, that is, the problems that are going on in the market, and use them in his own benefit and make things certain for people. Coming to our next slide, uniqueness. Other characteristic found in entrepreneurship is that of being special. Entrepreneurship involves a new combination of new approaches with which entrepreneurs are willing to experiment. Basically, it can go right or wrong. Through entrepreneurship, unique products are created and unique approaches are tried. Entrepreneurship is not merely imitating what others have done, it's doing something new, something untested and untried, something unique. Next point is organizing function. It is ability to bring together productive resources of society. Basically coordinates and controls efforts of all persons engaged in enterprises. He harnesses factors of production, which are land, labor, capital, and other resources for benefit of mankind. Therefore, an entrepreneur is also called an organization builder. So we can see in the diagram the function input comes in and output goes out. So basically, an entrepreneur can change, and from his idea, he can create a really good solution. Going to the next slide, essentials of entrepreneurship. Essential in every activity, entrepreneurship is required in all types of businesses, small or big, trading or manufacturing or service industry. It is essential for every business to exist and grow. Drucker says, entrepreneurship is by no means confined solely to economic institutions. So it definitely is more about people and maybe groups of friends or maybe college students. It can be on any age group, any gender, any country, and it can solve any kind of problem. Next point, knowledge-based practice. Drucker writes, entrepreneurship is neither a science nor an art. It is a practice. It has a knowledge base. He uses his experiences for higher achievements. The enterprising quality is generated after a long practice of risk-bearing behavior. Of course, a person of light heart cannot be an entrepreneur because he will be shocked if he faces loss, or he will not be able to take risk and will be really shaken if things go wrong, if employees leave suddenly, if manufacturing processes halt, if there is a fire, if there is economic conditions where he can't perform. Like we have seen in the lockdown, there have been so many problems for new budding entrepreneurs. So it's not easy, of course. Next slide, next point. Another characteristic of entrepreneurship is a recognition that entrepreneurship can take place in both profit and not for profit environments. So it can be for NGOs, social workers, or social welfare societies, communities who can be into entrepreneurship. In fact, in a company itself, there can be entrepreneurs which are called intra-entrepreneurs. Although we tend to assume that entrepreneurial activity is geared at making a profit, we agree that much of it is entrepreneurship also occurs in social service agencies, in community arts organizations, or in other types of not-for-profit settings. Entrepreneurship and management. Management is the agent through which all entrepreneurial decisions and plans are implemented. He brings new changes and improvements through management and his skill sets. To survive and win, the managers must become entrepreneur in their approach and tasks. Factors affecting entrepreneurship. This is the next part of our video. Now we see factors affecting entrepreneurial growth diagram. So first, factor affecting economic factors. Second, social factors. Third, cultural factors. And fourth is personality factors. The entrepreneurial activity at any time is dependent upon a complex and varying combination of economic, social, political, psychological, and other factors. These factors may have been both positive and negative influences on the emergence of entrepreneurship. Positive influences constitute facilitative and conductive, conclusive for the emergence of entrepreneurship. Various negative influences create inhibiting milieu to the emergence of entrepreneurship. Of course, an entrepreneur is also a human. So positive and negative influences work on him. If his family is supportive, his investors, his friends, or people who he looks upon are there for positive influence, it can really make a big difference. And it can be vice versa if there is negative affluence or people who have not done good enough in their own ventures or people who are very pessimistic. They will influence the entrepreneur to go downhill, and it can be a negative feeling because anyways he requires a lot of self motivation, and to grow he requires support. He or she really needs support from people around. It makes a huge difference. After understanding that point, let's come to the next one. Following factors contribute to the success of entrepreneurship. Economic factor. Factors such as availability of finance, labor, land, accessibility to customers, suppliers, and other factors that stimulate entrepreneurship. Capital is one of the most important prerequisites to establish an enterprise. Availability of sufficient capital affects the introduction, survival, and growth of a business enterprise. Capital is regarded as lubricant or the main function which reduces the friction to the process of production. If we increase in capital investment, capital output ratio also tends to increase. This results in increase in profit, which ultimately goes to capital formation. Due to this capital supply increase, entrepreneurship also increases. If we see the diagram towards the right side, let's go through it. In the center is the economic factors. What all influences economic factors have on entrepreneurship? First, we see inflation, that is rising prices. Second, we see recession, that is really lack of money in the market, like we faced in 2008. Third, we see trade cycles. Basically, there are a lot of things which influence the cycle of a business, income and employment. Of course, jobs are created and money comes in. Economic growth, if there is a lot of entrepreneurship and startups hub in a place, it can really boost the economy of that particular location. And next is the price level. If the people in that area are willing or able to pay that kind of price. Let's see the next slide. It talks about socio-economic factors. The entrepreneurial activity at any time and place is governed by varying combination of socio-economic factors. We will be discussing more about it. The imperial studies have identified the following socio-economic factors. So as we discuss the various points in socio-economic factors, let's ponder on them. The first one is caste and religion. Basically, A person might not get into certain startups because of the taboo they have in their religion. So, second is family background. If the family is into certain kind of businesses, they might continue to explore the same options. Level of education. If the person is really educated through good institutes, he might meet people who might be more innovative and coming from more resourced backgrounds. Next, level of perception. Of course, IQ plays an important role. Like Baiju Ravindran got 100 out of 100 in CAT two times plus because he might be really high on intelligence quotient. Next is legitimacy of entrepreneurship. So basically, how legal is the idea and how you can make it more genuine. So next is migratory character. An entrepreneur might be should be open to travel around, meet people, to open for ideas, open for exchanges and conversations with people who are like-minded. Next is social mobility. That means society and meeting networks which might add benefit to that. Social security, of course, the society should be acceptable of the idea and people should be supportive. Investment capacity, just because you have a mind blowing idea and it will really work wonders and fulfill a cap, does not mean that you will have the required capital for that business. And finally, a huge ambition and motivation, which is required. We have already seen why it is required. If we see the diagram, the business can be influenced by demography, culture, economy, common attitudes, beliefs, and value systems. So, in demography comes life expectancy, aging, family size, birth rate. In culture, there is fashion, social media, participation in events. In economy, there is retirement age, inequalities, conflicts, competition, reputation. In beliefs and value systems, you have religion, superstition, customs, and tradition. Common attitudes towards safety, banking, money, government, support, etc. Let's go to the next slide. What are these personal factors? McClelland assumes that achievement motivation is the immediate cause of the origin of entrepreneurship. He explained entrepreneurial growth in terms of need for achievement motivation. Thus, he found high correlation between needs for achievement and successful economic activities. Personality traits such as inner desire for control of their activities, tolerance for risk, high level of tolerance to function in adverse situations, and background experiences such as the family environment, level of education, age, and work history, tolerance for ambiguity are important personal characteristics that affect entrepreneurship. Individuals who are desirous of working independently are very self dependent, willing to work for long hours, and assume risk, are self confident, and hardworking are likely to be more successful as entrepreneurs than those who do not possess these qualities. Political. Some researchers felt that the growth of entrepreneurship cannot be explained fully unless the political setup of a country is taken into consideration. Boulding held that political structure was the deciding factor in entrepreneurial growth of France and Russia. Similarly, Holitz argued that France lagged behind economically because his social structure did not provide sufficient incentives and security to the entrepreneurs. But the same cannot be said for India because now there is a huge social structure and sufficient incentives for Indian entrepreneurs. Isn't that great? Government regulations, if you see the diagram, government regulations should include exchange rate benefits, trade cycles, should somehow manage the recession and inflation when it comes to entrepreneurs. Otherwise, they will never be motivated to work in a doomed economy or an economy where employment is really difficult or getting a new business rolling is difficult. Also, high taxes deter new entrepreneurs and makes life difficult. But nowadays, there is a tax holiday for entrepreneurs up to 1 year or up to they start earning profit initially. This is the benefit of starting a new business in India. Of course, Narendra Modi's Make in India also did wonders for entrepreneurs who wanted to make things in India and not import from countries like China, UK, etc. Given a boost from that scheme, a lot of entrepreneurs have got into filling the gaps and problems in the society and using the money for better outputs rather than just wasting it in entertainment and other pursuits. Next point is deregulation and privatization. Phillips in 1985 gives evidence that small firms are dominant in the increase of entrepreneurial activity in sectors that have been recently deregulated. Liberal economic policies in China have led to phenomenal growth fueled by entrepreneurs. The collapse of communism in Eastern Europe has led to thriving entrepreneurship in the new free market economies. Even in the rest of the world, conservative economic policy has given way to a brave new approach that has led to broad level deregulation across industries. It basically means that the rules and regulations have become more diluted, which has led to more startups. Now, companies have to deal with fewer licenses and fewer government controls. Many state owned enterprises have also been privatized, leading to a greater role in the private sector in general and entrepreneurs in particular. Internal control system. Entrepreneurship largely depends upon the control system designed for controlling the business activities. If the control system is effective, they will result in optimal inventory, good quality products, and high profit margins. This will have a positive effect on the success of entrepreneurship. Now, if we see the diagram towards the right, we will be doing more about internal sources. But here we are talking about internal environment. Let's see the various points. First is value system. The second is vision, mission, and objectives. So it's a short-term goals to long-term goals and the daily targets. Next is organizational structure. How you form the hierarchy and how people feel about their colleagues and their superiors and juniors. Next is corporate culture. It is not only that money should be the motivation, but being a part of this brand or organization is also important. Human resources, getting the right people at the right time, at the right cost, and retaining them is also a challenge. Because being a new entrepreneur, probably you will not be able to give market related salaries the way market is giving. So you will have to design your own salary systems and incentive programs to motivate such employees to stick to your startup. And next is physical resources and technological capabilities. Of course, all this really matters in the internal environment. Going to the next slide, government incentives and subsidies. Role of government in promoting entrepreneurship, the diagram says. Let's read. Loveman and Sengenberger, 1991, have discussed the positive role of government incentives and subsidies. In India, there are incentives being given by both the state and the central government. Many of the incentives are often sector specific, being given by the concerned ministry. Similarly, entrepreneurship is being encouraged in many countries with a variety of incentives such as tax breaks, preferred sourcing, or grants. Performance in terms of economic growth is shaped by the degree to which the prevalent industry structure efficiently utilizes scarce resources. Impact of ethical value system. Max Weber was first to point out that entrepreneurial growth was governed by the ethical value system of the society concerned. He said that the spirit of rapid industrial growth depends upon a rationalized technology, acquisition of money, and its rational use for productivity and multiplication of money. These elements depend upon a specific value orientation of individuals. Of course, doing the right thing takes more dare and efforts, but it is better in the long run because you will not be scared and you will be able to answer any questions that may come by legalities or otherwise. Next slide. Increasing demand for variety. Increased wealth has led to increase in the demand for variety. By Jackson in 1984, he said, the increasing demand for new products is of advantage to smaller firms. A number of studies have shown the comparative advantage of smaller firms in being innovative and coming up with new products. Krusha and Skidz, 1991, Rottle, 1984. If the products have unmet demand, it will create a market for itself. So you don't have to push, you can get a pull market. The success of entrepreneurship is therefore dependent upon the extent to which the product is in demand. So, of course, demand creates new ideas and there is money involved if there is demand. If you see the diagram towards the right, demand can be extreme, high, moderate, or low. Of course, extreme demand is the best market. 10th point, impact of services sector. Increase in per capita income leads to a greater share of the services sectors in the national economy. The average size of firms in many sections of the service sectors are relatively small. This in turn promotes entrepreneurial activity across a number of service sector industries. Even for some developing countries, such as India, services account for over half of the total GDP. Growing importance of services in the overall economy has paved the way for entrepreneurial activity. New industries such as software and business process outsourcing have emerged and these have large number of entrepreneurial firms. 11. Work environment. If the environment that an individual is working in is unsatisfactory, that is not conducive to his growth needs, it is likely that the individual will quit his job and start his own business as an entrepreneur. Unsatisfied personal needs for growth and achievement in employment conditions results in successful entrepreneurship because it's a great motivation for a person who is not liking his job. Next, let's see the next point, 12th point. Easier access to resources promotes entrepreneurship. Today, it is easier for an entrepreneur to access debt and equity finance than it was ever before. Not just capital, most other factors of production are now easily available to entrepreneurs. With greater flow of information, it is easier to contact and to deal with resource providers such as raw material suppliers and dealers of capital goods. Also, many entrepreneurs are getting support from their local people and they are getting business opportunities which might be suitable to their qualifications and backgrounds. That is a great part of being an entrepreneur. Let's see the next slide. 13. Career transitions. Career transition points are circumstances in which an individual is moving between one type of career related activity and another. Retirement from existing service or completion of a degree course is the factors that boost up a person's morale to start a venture of his own. Of course, there has to be some kind of influence to really make it happen. It does not come to a person who is happy with his job and already being paid enough. Usually, it is seen through statistics that people who really want to help or support people and who are not happy with what they are doing get into startups. And sometimes it may be they have come up with such nice service that people motivate them to start. Going to the 14th point, entrepreneurial education. More and more people with high academic attainments started joining the ranks of industrialists, especially the professionals holding qualifications in engineering, law, medicine, cost, and chartered accounting. The newer entrepreneurs have a large proportion of their flotation in the traditional sector, but these professionals have by and large preferred to make their investments in modern sector. The technicians in particular among both old and new entrepreneurs have entered industries in the modern sector having a bearing of their academic qualifications. Many universities and institutes are nowadays offering entrepreneurship education. A number of institutes have set up successful entrepreneurship centers which provide help to budding entrepreneurs by conducting formal training and structured mentoring programs. We will be seeing more about these support government agencies and private agencies in the coming chapters. But I hope students you enjoyed the first chapter of entrepreneurship management. We will be showing more topics about finance, support from government in the coming chapters. Thank you, students. Please keep listening to our next videos.